Hello, bruv. We're back with the Bürgermeister's daughter. Continuing with the story of Anna and the renewal of her belief that she is being cheated out of the family inheritance, as she actually was. Persona non grata. It was clear to Anna, and she thought also to everyone else present on that day in 1543, that she had signed the agreement with her siblings under duress. From this, she had derived her only comfort at the time, for she knew that an agreement made under such conditions would be ruled null and void at a fair hearing, and the question of her inheritance reopened. No sooner had she departed the council room than she began to think how she might escape Hall and seek help against the city and their siblings. By January 1544 at the latest, she had in all likelihood taken refuge in Neuenstein, whence she now prepared her counterattack. Her first new legal action of record was a letter to the City Council of Hull, written on January 23rd, 1544, in which she formally protested the agreement with her siblings and begged the council to intervene on her behalf. She accused her siblings of having taken away her natural inheritance contrary to law and fairness, and bound her to a punishing agreement based on their father's fickle testament. Since signing the agreement, she had discovered the exact clause in her parents' marriage contract that forbade either parent from disposing of marital property beyond their immediate personal belongings. She now asked the council to sequester an inventory of her father's estate and to block any further division of it, or transference of the case to another jurisdiction, without her foreknowledge and consent. Already earlier, within weeks of the signing of the agreement, both sides had made informal appeals to the council to enforce its terms on all parties. At the time, Anna accused Philip of not paying her creditors and even privately threatening to have her jailed if her carping and criticism continued. He, in fact, held her before the city council in an effort to silence eternally her alleged slandering of his intentions. It was after several months of such bickering that he and Agatha filed the defamation suit against their sister. Meanwhile, her vociferous criticism of Hull, Justice and Spare, and the insults and threats she had leveled at the Hull delegation during the famous meeting in Verzelman's house there had made her persona non grata with the city council as well, which looked on such indiscretion and disrespect by a citizen as virtual treason. Once again, powerful storm clouds had gathered around Anna. On April 18, 1544, the council sent her the first of 3 summonses to appear at City Hall to answer the charges of her siblings. As with 2 subsequent summonses on May 17th and July 4th, she was celebrating Independence Day, bruv. Anna did not comply. By midsummer, her presumed defiance of the council had thoroughly alienated Hull's magistrates. Convinced that any further overtures on their part would only be met with wanton rejection of authority, the council ordered her arrest for disobedience and insubordination, describing its action as singularly necessary for the sake of public order and security. Pursuant to that order, the city militia caught up with Anna and her lawyer in late August in the town of Monkheim, within Hull's jurisdiction. There they arrested her and brought her back to Hull, where she was confined in what the council described as a completely tolerable woman's prison. The unfolding of these events would soon rival in personal terror Anna's earlier capture and shackling by her father. Again, her retelling of them completely contradicts the council's version. According to her account, she and her lawyer entered a Hull territory freely and in good faith en route to the city to meet her court date with the council, apparently in late August or early September. True, she was tardy in doing so, but not because of any disrespect for the council. She had hesitated only because the council had refused to send her a letter of safe conduct before she departed Speyer for Hull. In the place of such a letter, it assured her that her citizenship would suffice to protect her once she was in Hull land. With that assurance, she had in the end reluctantly set out for Hull, as in a similar situation 18 years earlier when the city's safe conduct had failed to protect her from her father. Her citizenship now proved, despite the official assurance, to be no guarantee of safety from her enemies in the council. Once again, the past seemed to be repeating itself for Anna Buschler. Behind her arrest in Monkheim, she saw the hand of her brother. She reasoned that her siblings now feared that the wrong they had done her by their clever agreement might come to light during their defamation suit. To interrupt that process, they had instigated her arrest and other charges, namely her alleged defiance of the city's summonses. Again, much as her father had earlier interrupted a pending litigation in Hull by taking her captive in Esslingen on the authority of an imperial mandate. By now, Anna was so cynical about Hull justice that she must have suspected that a hearing there under any conditions would produce the same result. Regardless of the charges brought against her, soon after her arrival and imprisonment, Tower officials took a deposition. In it, they describe her as a broken woman, angry, debilitated, despairing, refusing to talk to anyone or to receive any assistance. She appeared to be completely wretched and ill, the deposition reported, and cried out to God that she could come to such great ruin and suffering in body and soul because of the damned estate of her father, a condition in which she expected to die. While she also had a jaundiced view of her lawyer, she blamed her present misfortune completely on her brother and sister, who had stopped her quarterly and annuity payment. She saw no chance of reconciliation with them, nor any possibility of gaining any further assistance from them. The deposition quotes her as begging the council to be her father and mother and to think kindly of her, as she now had no one else to run to. What the council had described as a tolerable woman's prison, Anna found to be a wretched tower. There she was confined for a total of 6 weeks, during the last of which she fell ill and had to be transferred to the hospice, where her husband had died the previous year. There she was chained to her bed so that she could not escape, not an unusual practice for the insane. She claims that a special cell was then being built for her on the premises, within which the council intended to confine her for the remainder of her life. Despite misgivings about her lawyer, who had returned alone to Speyer after her arrest in Monkheim, the man proved in the end to be of some assistance to her, albeit belatedly and in predictably lawyerly fashion. Learning of her imprisonment in Hull, he had petitioned the Rottweil court for a penal mandate ordering her a swift release. He wrote to Anna in October 8 to inform her of his success in the mailing of the mandate to the city council, in return for which services he requested 3.25 gulden by return mail. The mandate proved, however, to be unnecessary, as Anna, ever resourceful, managed to escape to the safety of Neuenstein by her own devices. Nonetheless, in subsequent briefs against the city, she would cite the council's defiance of that very mandate as one of 3 ways it had broken imperial law when it took and held her captive. In addition to 1 leaving her in chains against the order of a higher court, the council had 2 illegally imprisoned the woman for a civil offense, and 3 used that imprisonment as grounds for suspending a pending lawsuit with her siblings. In a word, all of her many enemies in Hull had conspired quietly to put her away for life. The Rottweil court subsequently fined Hull 20 marks of highest quality gold for defying its order to release her. 10 for the court and 10 for Anna. The council appealed that fine on the grounds that Anna had already escaped by the effective date of the mandate, so that no punishable act of disobedience on its part had actually occurred. 6 years later, that fine remained unpaid, and was still being debated by the two courts, Hall and Rottweil. Anna, however, never stopped believing that the magistrates of Hall had knowingly deceived and bullied her throughout the entire episode. Normally, I would stop here, but I'm only 10 minutes into this reading, so we shall continue into Chapter 6. Conrad Buschler, Jr., 1512-79, Anna's council-appointed curator in 1543 and 1544, was in his early 30s during the negotiations with her siblings. His father, Conrad Sr., died 1550. Also played a prominent official role during the negotiations. It was to his house that Anna first fled in 1525 after her forced removal from her father's house. Chapter 6. Witnesses. In the aftermath of her arrest until the day she died from the summer of 1544 to January 1522, Anna attempted to reopen the matter of her inheritance and to punish the city of Hull for maliciously arresting and jailing her. In this undertaking, she was assisted by a new husband whom she married in 1546. His name was Johann von Sporland, a Neuenstein native, and judging by his activities on Anna's behalf, a man both knowledgeable in the ways of the law and certainly dogged. Unfortunately, the sources do not permit a judgment on whether he was the most unprincipled and cunning man available to her at the time, although the chances of finding such a man in the princely stronghold of Neuenstein were surely favorable. Sporland's persistence in the courts on Anna's behalf, both during her lifetime and after her death, suggests that she had had some success in fulfilling her infamous Speyer prophecy. Between 1546 and 1550, the Sporlands petitioned the imperial court in Esslingen to invalidate Anna's 1543 agreement with her siblings and clear the way for Anna to receive a full inheritance. Of the few documents that appear to have survived from these years, one is a copy of the court's response to the Sporlands' indictment of Philip and Wolf Schanz, Agatha's husband, dated March 1548. It provides a glimpse, at least, of the ongoing conflict between the three siblings and the court's cool reaction to it. In it, the court instructs both parties, on pain of fine, to abide by the law and the resolution of their differences, thereby preserving the status quo, which did not favor Anna, while at the same time leaving the door of the court open to further litigation. The Sporlands, however, wanted a grand review, and in the end, that was exactly what they got. Having watched the Buschler family feud fester for 6 more years, the imperial court intervened in what... Let the chooch speak, bruv. Having watched the Buschler family feud fester for 6 more years, the imperial court intervened in what promised to be a decisive resolution between the spring of 1550 and January 1552. Intermittently, during those 20-odd months, 4 separate commissions, staffed by imperial court judges, visited Hull and conducted as many hearings, taking testimony from dozens of witnesses in an effort to end the dispute once and for all. A combination of factors lay behind the decision to act at this time. First and foremost was the Sporlands' relentless pursuit of their claims, which never allowed the dispute to die. There was also the clear failure of the city council of Hull to bring the dispute to a final closure. In addition, the testimony taken during the hearings at mid-century make it clear that both conscientious members of Hull City Council and imperial officials familiar with the case at the courts of a higher jurisdiction, variously Rottweil, Esslingen, Speyer, and Augsburg, suspected that a great unrequited wrong had been done Anna Buschler by her father. Imperial authorities also worried that the city council of Hull had broken imperial law in its covenant with one of its citizens when it arrested and imprisoned Anna in 1544. Not a few Hull citizens still remembered those 6 months in 1525 when the city council stood by and watched as Herman Buschler made his daughter a prisoner in her own house. Finally, after almost 3 decades of feuding, everyone connected with this on-again, off-again drama, whether as participant, witness, or mere observer. Both the Buschlers and the Lusenbruns, Sporlins, imperial judges, and Hall councilmen, and a sizable segment of Hall citizenry was ready to see it end. Only the lawyers could have found a silver lining in its continuation. In the presence of one or more of their 4 commissions, Anna, her siblings, and the city council each gave their version of events, both those surrounding the agreement of 1544 and its subsequent failure, and those leading to Anna's arrest by the city in the same year and its terrible aftermath. What Anna had to say about these matters so contradicted the account given by her siblings and the city council that the commissioners could only conclude that lies were being told on all sides. Anna made 2 large accusations that bring to focus the key legal issues that the commissioners now relied on witnesses to resolve. The first, that her siblings had coerced her into signing an agreement that was far more in their interest than in hers, and having done so, then refused to honor its key provision, the payment of her debts. Secondly, she accused the city council of deceitfully and illegally arresting her after the agreement's collapse, but for her lucky escape, intending to let her rot to death in a specially made prison cell. On both charges, Anna sought compensation for her losses and injuries, and appropriate punishment of her tormentors. Remembering Anna. While Anna portrayed her siblings and leading city officials as disingenuous and cruel, they portrayed her to the imperial commissioners as a near sociopath. The commissioners sought to determine the truth by taking testimony from approximately 36 witnesses who arguably either had been on or were in a position to know the relevant facts. These were people who had either been present at crucial junctures in Anna's life, particularly in the 1520s when the dispute began, or had had a close relationship over the years with one or more of the parties involved. Hence the colorful parade of citizens and subjects, relatives and friends from Hull, surrounding villages and neighboring towns and places as far away as Rothenburg. There were 39 witnesses in all, both male and female, ranging in age from 23 to 80. They were both the powerful and the barely visible, landed noblemen as well as day laborers, with annual incomes as high as 5,000 gulden per annum and lower than 20, a jury not only of peers, but one that also represented a very large part of the social spectrum of 16th century society, an indication of that society's integration and fluidity. The commissioners left few stones unturned in assembling relevant witnesses. Well represented were local councilmen, territorial officials, and lawyers directly connected with the case over the years. There were also 3 domestic servants, 2 mercenaries, a housewife, a baker, a messenger, a law student, a salt maker, a shoemaker, a tailor, and a plasterer filling out the ranks. The oddest witness may have been Margaretha Keidmanen, a 40-year-old bath attendant who 30 years earlier, at 10 years of age, had worked for Anna's mother as a maid. She was summoned to the Windberg hearings in the apparent hope that she might recall how Anna, who would then have been in her early 20s, had behaved upon returning to her father's house after her mother's death. Information pertinent to an assessment of Anna's character. Having left the Buschler household before the death of Anna's mother, Margaretha could not, unfortunately, comment directly on Anna's conduct, nor was she able to provide the commission with any other relevant information. Let me turn off this light. There we go. By a preponderance of the testimony before the 4 commissions, which was taken at different times and often from the same witnesses, the commissioners expected to expose the lies resolved the contradictions, and determined the truth of Anna's accusations. Only 2 witnesses testified at all 4 hearings: Leonard Fuchter, as we call him, Leonard Fuchter, Hall's reigning Bürgermeister, and physician Anthony Bralix, who had known Anna's mother and father before the marriage and had continued to have a close personal relationship with the family thereafter. 2 other witnesses testified at 3 of the hearings: the octogenarian nobleman and several-time councilman Volk von Rasdorf, died 1554, the oldest witness, and one who had some sympathy for Anna, and councilman Hans Eisenmenger, a loyalist who adhered strictly to the city's version of events. 17 other witnesses testified at 2 of the 4 hearings. A case could be made that third-party testimony was weighted against Anna. The largest single group of witnesses, all basically unsympathetic, was Hall councilmen, of whom there were 10. A number of other witnesses had had confrontations with her, which might cast suspicion on their testimony. This is certainly true of her father's servants, Leinhard Wahmann and Barbara Dahlen. It was Wahmann who had recovered the 2 barrels of his master's goods that Anna had stolen and shipped to Kirchberg, with the intention of selling there, and in one of which her scandalous love letters had been discovered. This and other of her misdeeds which he had observed had left Wahmann with mixed feelings about her at best. Barbara Dahlen had endured both disrespect and alleged death threats from Anna, and she manifestly disliked her. At least one witness, saltmaker Gilg Manger, had lent Anna money, which she only slowly repaid. Yet he spoke up in her favor. And on the other hand, cousin and curator Conrad Buchler Jr., whose unqualified support she might have expected to receive, contradicted her testimony on key points. A few councilmen, however, broke ranks and spoke good words as well as bad on her behalf in a complex story such as Anna's, where the protagonist is both a fearless sinner and boldly sinned against. A seeming friend might prove an enemy, a presumed enemy a friend, and not a few could play it both ways. For Anna tempted both her contemporaries to take a second, critical look at their public lives and heroes, and to compare their own private desires with what society required of them, a prospect both frightening and exhilarating. On one issue, a solid majority of witnesses agreed. Anna had been a well-informed and willing participant in the deliberations leading to the disposition of the family estate. Councilman Hans Eisenmenger and Wimpfen's city secretary Leinhard Bleimeyer, a man in Maternus Verselmann's employ, testified that Anna had too many distinguished advisers at her side credibly to claim that she had not fully understood what was happening to her. Nice misspelling. Verselmann's central role in the drafting and implementation of the agreement, which Anna reviewed as sinister, was also praised by Eisenmenger and Bleimeyer. They portrayed the old Stadtschreiber as an honest broker with nothing to gain from the agreement, which he had crafted only with Anna's well-being in mind. At least one councilman, however, could not honestly say whether Verselmann had favored one side or the other. Those present throughout the negotiations describe Anna as having been a cheerful and enthusiastic participant from start to finish. Bleimeyer remembered thinking at the time how absorbed and pleased she was by what she heard, although he acknowledged that he could not say from what impulse she had in the end embraced the agreement. According to Councilman Melchior Wetzel, no one at the signing threatened her in any way. Only once did she interrupt the proceedings, and then only to confer briefly in private with her curator. Returning to the council room, the two posed a question or two, which, having been satisfactorily answered, her curator announced that she would abide by the agreement. I keep saying agreement. Would abide by the agreement. Eisenmenger remembered watching as she then held her right hand over her left breast and swore allegiance to the agreement in the council room. Therefore, Thereafter, exclaiming to the assembly, "Praise God that I am thus provided for and now have my livelihood." Another prominent person present throughout the negotiations, Bürgermeister Leonard Fuchter, recalled that in the days after the signing of the agreement she had been completely at peace with her brother and was frequently at his house, which she dearly loved. On the other hand, Johann Hornberger had heard others say that Anna was not at all happy with the agreement and had departed whole at her earliest opportunity, fully intending to challenge it. Volk von Rasdorf had even heard rumors that she had been drunk at the time it was drawn up, and for that reason was refusing to abide by it. It was uncharacteristic of Anna to play a waiting game. Her instinct was always to act up, to take immediate and decisive action. Well, it can hardly be said that she was ever in the dark during the negotiations with her siblings. She rather understood all too well what was occurring. She did find herself at the time in what was for her the most stressful of situations, namely one she could not control, hence the contradictory assessments of her behavior. And that will wrap up today's reading, although I probably should go further. No. There's only about 15 more pages. Lots of them are pictures. No, there's a lot more pages. You're wrong. Goodbye.